Good evening and welcome to the General Services Committee at 6 p.m. on the 7th of February. Can I start straight away with apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Johnson.
Thank you very much. Any others? I think everyone's here other than that. And then we move on to minutes of the last meeting. Is there any comments on the minutes committee? No? Oh, okay then. Adopt the minutes and move on. Item 3 is matters of urgent business. I have no matters of urgent business to disclose. Item 4, declarations of interest. Declarations of interest on tonight? No, thank you. And we move on then to item 5, representations to government of the government directions issued on January 2023. You've seen the item, it come late, but obviously it was a short time that the government's given us to respond. I thought it was quite appropriate for it to come to this committee here today. It has to be in by tonight. I open the members to have a comment publicly about the letter and our response. Any member? Councillor Worrell.
Thank you, Chair. On page 2 of the letter of the response, under other matters, it talks about a novel intervention and that it does pose challenges and that we're being treated to how others have been treated in the past, and I just wonder, why we're not getting a conventional approach and why we would be treated as a novel intervention, a novelty. It kind of doesn't feel right to me that maybe this is the right thing for us. And why has this been chosen? Thank you.
Thank you. Before I butt in with my two let's ask the actual technicality what that was happened here from the acting chief executive or maybe the monitoring officer. I'll leave it to Ian first.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's novel. Novel is actually a word that the commissioners have used themselves. So that's why we've used the word. I think it's novel in two ways. Firstly, we've had a best value inspection as part of the directions. What usually happens if you have your best value inspection first and then you get directions afterwards. But the Secretary of State was so concerned in terms of the level of debt that came as part of the initial directions. But it was always, I think we were always expecting following the best value inspection we will get further directions. The second slightly unusual way that it was set up was to appoint Essex County Council as the corporate body as the commissioner. Generally, you would get a lead named commissioner, and government, in their wisdom, appointed ECC as the named commissioner as a corporate body in the first element of the direction. So that's what that paragraph deals with.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't understand that the Secretary of State in September, or when I took over in September 2nd, and actually intervening now, but it had to be done quickly and done at speed. And I think it needed to do that, and then we needed the auspices of just not one commissioner and that. But as we move to a more conventional intervention, I think we need more conventional rules and know where we're going. And I think this letter explains that, either to make it a more conventional from the 99 Act, or have some sort of MOU that's public so we understand who does what, when, and when the decisions are going. So it's more public for the people, residents of the borough. Councillor Kent.
So you and I have had a kind of brief chat about this. The paragraph says it does pose some challenges that have not been experienced by authorities in intervention and require navigating whilst also responding to the significant improvement, blah, blah, blah. Can you give me some examples of the challenges that have been posed by this model?
I think the challenges in this model as leader has been making sure that the Essex County Council and in the struggle of Essex County Council coming to us here, and with actually openness of us knowing it's new to Essex, it's new to us, and it's new to the legislature state and the legislation. So we're actually writing something that's very, very different than what previously happened since 1999. And I found that it's been difficult. It's not been unsurmountable, but as we've got this opportunity, I think this is opportunity to make it clear and open, which I want to deliver, that everyone knows the decision structure as we go forward. But I don't know if, Ian, did you want to answer from the officer way of how the interventions work so far for you personally?
I think one of the challenges where you've got a BVI going on, where a couple of things drop out of the BVI going on at the same time. The first is actually just capacity, and I think we all recognise that because it's been an additional demand on the organisation when it's trying to, well, it's under stress, I think it's fair to say, in terms of trying to undertake a financial diagnostic at the same time. I think connected to that, as I say, we were expecting further interventions of parts of the BVI, so there's been an element of just second-guessing exactly what will be and trying to respond to Commissioner demands at the same time. I mean, I don't want the letter to give the impression that there's been a major problem. I think we've worked really collaboratively and positively with Commissioners and them with us. But I just think that additional complexity has added challenges where if you had your BVI and you got very clear directions and a lead commissioner model, we've had clarity that we haven't had over the past 5 months.
Councillor, come back there.
Yeah, and I understand that, but I'm not convinced that having a different model from the 2nd of September would have resolved any of those issues. I think all of those issues would still have existed. That's my take on it. I think we've been very open in the letter, looking at asking the Essex County Council take on the role of the convener. So we're not saying that we want to lose Essex County Council. It's just about clarifying some roles as much as anything else. So to what extent will the appointment of a managing director commissioner resolve that issue anyway?
I think it doesn't. Do someone do it to the MOU? I think we've got to be open, and this is why the letter's been discussed here tonight. The opaqueness of an MOU between us and the officers and in that, I think is the inappropriate way. So actually residents know in an open way these conversations are. Now, an MOU was written in between us what was happening in September, and it wasn't open. And one of my things is to make sure that this is open and outside, and everyone can see it, that what we're doing and how this intervention will work. And the novel item, as we move to a normal committee, well, once the BVI is published in the end of February, then it doesn't become a novel intervention, and we just got to come back to how we all understand these work and how the general public should understand these work, and making it easier for our members of 4049 to understand this and look back at previous interventions. I think the convener element of that is really important because they understand us, they've been around, they're our neighbours, and I think we can't lose that experience that Ian and I've definitely found where we've actually had, can someone help us with that instead of one named commissioner. It was very easy and very helpful through my experience as a new leader here, and I don't know if Ian, you had the same experience. But further questions, Councillor Kent?
No, I don't think it's a question, but I do just want to come back to it. It's that last line that says, in particular, the Council would welcome directly announced by the Department the identification of a lead commissioner as has been put in place in other interventions. I just want some clarity and some view as to whether the Managing Director Commissioner will in essence be the named lead commissioner. Do we know whether that's the case or not?
That is the Secretary of State's decision, and I'm leaving it to the Secretary of State. I think that could be the lead commissioner. There could be a lead commissioner and a commissioner managing director. That there's been other models I've looked at, and it does have a lead commissioner and then a chief executive act managing director. So that is a Secretary of State's decision. But we're persuaded. I think these work well. And that's I'm repeat, Councillor Kent, what you said, and I think it's just making sure we have these small changes, and this is our representations that we could actually deliver. Whether the lead commissioner is, I don't mind.
So we don't think there's any value in adding to the letter that we would appreciate or we would welcome the Managing Director Commissioner being the lead commissioner.
I would welcome other. I think that a lead commissioner and then a managing director may well work better. There's more capacity, which has been written into there. There's that capacity issue, and that helps us with a capacity issue in here. And I think it moves forward. And that I think it would the other way. I think the lead commissioner may be helpful to have both. But because and I've seen this in Slough when they had this, there was an assistant commissioner who then was a chief executive commissioner, and then there was a lead commissioner, and there still is that. And I think that help in moving forward, as mentioned in the BVI and as mentioned in the Let Commissioners report of December, there's a capacity issue in the officer corps. I think the acting chief executive mentioned this. It was hard during this to get capacity and get the time scale, and I think there's an opportunity there to see us an extra capacity at that senior level.
Yeah, I'm not convinced. And you know, this is new for all of us. Yeah. So you know, we are kind of feeling our way. I just think what we're saying to government is we would appreciate one named person, which I think is right, and I kind of welcome that. I still make the point that my preference would be for that one named person to be the managing director commissioner. Yeah. That would be my preference. I've just got a fear that having managing director, lead commissioner, just starts to add a bit of complexity that we don't need, and I'm not convinced by the argument that it adds capacity. I think that it may just add complexity rather than capacity.
I see that point, but the problem, when I look at if we're trying to move away from novel, that's what's been happening in other areas. That's what's happened in other areas, and I wanted the Secretary of State if he's with a minded to letter and is minded to copy this and remove it as a novel. That's what's happened in every area. And I'm trying to stick to removing the novelty out of this and to make it more traditional. And that's another unusual model which hasn't been done since maybe Hackney, but I may be wrong in Hackney again because it was changed again in halfway through in Hackney. So I'm just trying to take that we can go into a book and find out what's happened in this area, that's happened in this area, and I think that's giving that opportunity to actually say the Secretary of State to make that decision. I would be happy with either, and I think that's a very helpful suggestion because I think that makes it easier for us. But is that moving away, go back to another novelty? Councillor Massey.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Obviously, we've been doing a lot of research into this by the sound of it. I mean, if there was two roles, would they both be full-time roles, or would the lead commissioner be still Essex part-time and Thurrock rest?
That's the lead commissioner. I would be just to write the commissioner report of what's happening. It becomes, I think previously have done it because there'd be a chief executive that reports to a lead commissioner to oversee that, and that's always going to happen. And I think there'd be, again, if you look at that managing director as not as a commissioner by the commissioner, but as a CEO for us, that means he's got two hats, and it's very difficult. So I'd say we're moving to a very novel, unusual circumstance. But I am not didn't write the legislation in 1999. Ian, do you want to answer?
I just want to add, only because we talk about capacity, so I wanted to say how big capacity would increase having two people in the role. That was the reason for the question.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to make that point. So I think the best example is Slough. So my understanding in Slough is the lead commissioner had oversight for the intervention and was obviously DLUC's key representative in terms of setting that strategic direction. The then deputy commissioner, who was the chief exec and head of paid service, was about delivery and implementation and overall responsibility. And I think they are two separate roles. One's a commissioning role and one's a delivery role. But by having both named as commissioners, there's a stronger link into DLUC, so I think it's a better model.
That's why Ian's much more articulate than me about trying to say the same thing. Thank you, Ian. Any other comment? I'm just going to go.
I'm quite happy for you. Oh,
Councillor Arnold.
I thought you wanted to come back in. Sorry.
Thank you. It's more of a comment than anything. Most of the points have been covered.
paragraph 1 under draft directions and instructions, and then on page 2, paragraph 3 under other matters. They kind of feel intrinsically linked for me in the we've had a go sort of within our special measures. We've been trying to run systems, and for me, in order to get the scrutiny and the transparency, it's all about timing. To have sufficient timing, and I think that will come. What the good governance and the scrutiny will come with the timing that I hope will be a priority within the memorandum of understanding and operationalising things. That's all I really wanted to say.
Thank you. Yeah, that's hopefully that's
Start ironing out the wrinkles.
I'm hoping so. Any other? Ken, are you content with the letter as it is, or did you? I know of the answers that you got, or I don't want to.
I think it was important that we just tried to get under the skin of it and discussed it. I'm content for the letter to go as it is.
Okay, so any questions for you? No. Okay, so with that, we accept the letter, and it's in the public domain, and obviously been sent today to the Secretary of State on time. Thank you very much. We move on to the next item. Hold on. Oh, we're starting here. Right, let's move to the next item. And then I'm just trying to find the next. That's it. We move now to exclusion of members of Parliament. Members are asked to consider whether the press and public should be excluded from this meeting for the consideration of the later general items on the grounds that it involves likely to disclose exempt information specified in Part B, Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. It is to be confidential as per Section 100A2 of that said Act. Are we content? Yes. Thank you very much.